They did it. Well, kind of. I scored a minor victory. Meeks got plenty of media attention, and the New Trier students and staff were polite. But what about momentum? If $17,000 per child isn't met by Friday, the students have been cheated. Tomorrow, send your child to school. A sit-in in downtown Chicago is just another unexcused absence. I believe in fighting the power, but go to school to learn how. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to We Shall Overcome 2008 with better teachers, better facilities, and a bus trip to New Trier. But what about doing the best you can with what you have? I've been to schools with great facilities, but with uninspired teachers. You should expect more from your child's existing school. That's more realistic than begging a Winnetka or Northfield school. Call me tonight and tell me that I'm wrong on Garrard McClendon Live. You know what? Joining us now is Reverend Marshall Elijah Hatch Sr. from New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. Reverend Hatch, welcome to Garrard McClendon Live.
Thank you, Gerard. Good to be here.
You know what? Thanks for being on the show. I'm very serious about not protesting against you and Reverend Meeks, but I've got some serious problems with children not going to school. Before we get into that, tell me how things went today at New Trier.
Well, of course, it was a super duper day and a super civics lesson for not only the young people that came from Chicago, but those that were at New Trier as well. We had between 2,500 and 3,000 people.
Now, why New Trier? Out of all school systems, why not pick a school system a little bit closer, you know, in terms of, you know, closer to Cook County? You know, why New Trier?
Well, obviously, you know, it provides the contrast in New Trier, some $17,000 per pupil in that school district versus CPS, Chicago Public Schools, some 10,000, really less than 10,000, a little less than 10,000 per pupil. So it just provides the contrast. I mean, it really it demonstrates, I think, without question, the shame of Illinois that we are #1 in disparity between the richer and the poorest districts.
Yeah, you know, Reverend Hatch, it looks like you've got some ammunition on the phone. It looks like we've got Reverend James T. Meeks. Reverend Meeks, welcome to Garrard McClendon Live.
Hey, Gerard, how you doing, buddy?
We got.
Yes, how you doing?
All right, how you doing there, Reverend Meeks?
Great, great.
This is excellent.
Super duper.
Reverend Meeks, I got to ask you, how did things go today? Reverend Hatch said it went well, but I still have some problems with you taking children to New Trier. How did it go, and justify this?
Well, things went well. We had over 1,000 kids there registered today. But let me ask you a question. What is your problem so that I can explain it?
My problem is that Rufus Williams put out a threat today. He said that if the children miss 8 days of school, they may have to go to summer school. Now, what my problem is not necessarily protesting for more school funding. My problem is yanking children out of school. Is this not a legislative adult issue?
Rufus Williams cannot change the rules in the middle of the game. A child cannot be marked absent who has not enrolled in school. These children have not yet enrolled in school. They are not absent until they are first marked present. So that's a fallacy. They're trying to frighten children. And so we could go on to the next question. Now, what was the next question?
Okay, so Reverend Meeks, how many days are you going to keep the children out of school? Because even if the children don't have to go to summer school, how long are they going to stay out? September, October, November?
Well, we're planning to keep them out through Friday, and then Friday night the ministers will have a meeting, and we will assess where we are and whether or not we should recommend to their parents they go back. Here's another question that I think is more important. Rather than being concerned that they missed the day, we want people to be concerned that they're missing an education.
Yeah.
Kids who go to this system 180 days are missing an education. The school, by its own admissions, say they don't have the resources to properly educate them. 50% of them drop out, 63% of boys, and then those who do go on and graduate and get into high school, They are not prepared. 91% of them can't do math at the high school level, and 75% of them can't read at grade level. So the schools don't have the resources to properly educate them. So what are we discussing here?
Reverend Meeks, is this a funding issue, though? If we go to Naperville, they have $9,800 per student. Chicago has the same. Is it just a funding issue?
It is a funding issue. The feeder school for New Trier is $21,000 per student. The New Trier people told me today, whatever I do, don't let people say it's not a funding issue. They couldn't operate on our budget. If they had to operate on our budget, they would lose $31 million a year. Sure, it is a funding issue. 88% of their teachers have a master's degree,
yes,
compared to 20% of our teachers. With funding, you can pay for better teachers. All of their teachers are teaching in the subject matter in which they are trained. Yeah. All of our teachers are teaching in a different subject matter.
Okay.
Sure, money matters.
That's a good point, because when we talk about highly qualified teachers, according to No Child Left Behind, the teachers are supposed to be teaching in their subject matter. My question, Reverend Meeks, is this, and I ask this to you and Reverend Hatch. Are you saying that Chicago public school teachers are inferior?
That is not the argument.
Yes, it is.
And I don't want to get into
Reverend
it with
Meeks,
the teachers.
Reverend Meeks, you just said it. You said that these districts can pay teachers more. You said they have master's degrees. You said they're teaching in their subject area, and now you don't want to talk about it?
No. The word is not inferior. They have more teachers teaching in their subject matters than Chicago does. They have more teachers with master's degrees than Chicago does. To hire a teacher with a master's degree, it takes money.
Okay, but to hire teachers with a master's degree in Chicago, aren't we looking at a quantity issue here? It's easier to hire teachers at $84,000 a year in Winnetka because you have less teachers to choose from and you have expectations that are higher. Isn't that not more difficult in a larger city?
You can hire a teacher in any school district if you have the money to pay for them. I met a teacher today who said, hey, the reason I'm out here is because they offered me $7,000 more. But it's just not a matter of now, Gerard. The matter is this. We've been here now for 30 years.
Yeah.
For 3 decades, we have not educated children. For 3 decades, we have been playing around with Springfield and playing around with this funding inequality. Yeah. When is it going to stop?
Yeah.
Who will put attention or shine the spotlight on the issue to the point that it can stop?
And
it has to stop.
I must admit, Reverend Meeks, you have shined the spotlight on this. Hold tight. I want to go back to Reverend Hatch. Reverend Hatch, why are you on board with this proposal?
Because it's the right thing to do. I think that, you know, when you look at who we're really talking about, we're talking about children who really have the most needs, most educational needs, and they're getting the least amount of funding. I mean, it really is not a political issue. The reason why clergy are involved, it is a moral issue. I mean, it is downright wrong, and it's un-American for the children who have the greatest needs to have the least amount of money invested in them.
So, Reverend Hatch, it's a social justice issue for you, correct?
Yes, it's a matter of right or wrong.
Yes.
It's a moral issue.
Yes, and I want to go back to Reverend Meeks. Reverend Meeks, I thank you so much for coming on Garrard McClendon Live. Give me a closing statement, please.
The closing statement is this: Rufus Williams' children, Mayor Daley's children, and mine. Rufus's kids are Whitney Young. All schools are not Whitney Young. Mayor Daley's kids went to private school. My kids went to a private high school. What do parents do that can't afford it? They deserve education for their children, just like we did. We provided an education for ours. It should happen in the public school system, and we should fight and make sure that every public school is good, not just a few, not just for the rich, not just for the privileged, and that's why we're fighting this fight.
Yes, sir, Reverend Meeks. Reverend Meeks, closing comment, what about charter schools?
I think that every public school should be a good school. And if every public school was a good school, we wouldn't need charter schools.
Reverend Meeks from Salem Baptist, we appreciate you. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Keep marching
Thank you.
on.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care, Reverend.
Was Board President Rufus Williams threatening parents and students? You better go to school tomorrow. Call me, 630-575-TALK. More Garrard McClendon live in 2 minutes.
9 days of school. You will have to go to summer school to be promoted. So anyone who is not in school today, know that you are directly affecting your future by not being in school today. So if you're not here, get here right now. No matter what you think a good reason is not to be in school, it's not good enough.
Oh my goodness, I'm telling you, Rufus Williams, it sounded like a threat to me. Pinstripes on, he had the pocket square. Welcome back to Garrard McClendon Live. Question, go to inferior schools close to home or try to enroll in superior ones in a galaxy far, far away. Joining us is Reverend Marshall Hatch. Reverend, thanks for staying with us on Garrard McClendon Live. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Reverend Hatch, I'm going to read some blogs here, and then I'm going to continue with the discussion. I'm reading a blog here from Pat. She says, the CPS boycott holds a message that needs to be heard. The boycott does not advocate for children to stay home and play video games or do nothing. It advocates for children and their parents to participate in the boycott. What do you think about that, Reverend Hatch?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the boycott is about a thirst for education. I mean, if you could have seen some of the things we saw today, a marvelous civics lesson for the children, for the young people that were with us, not only fighting for themselves, but really fighting for all of the students in the state of Illinois. And so we really had school today, and I think a very meaningful lesson.
Yes. I'm going to go to one more blog comment. I'm going to Dave. Dave says, I have no problem with Reverend Meeks calling for more funding for schools. In all reality, someone has to pay for it. In some of the poor areas where the kids live, where is it, living with, lots of the parents are not footing their share of the tax bill. You know, that's an interesting point, because if it boils down to just taxes and the tax rate in the neighborhood you live in, you're looking at funding inequality and inequity right there.
Absolutely, and I think it's important. We're not just talking about Illinois. This is a problem that other states have fixed and have moved to solve all across the country.
Yes,
New York
yes.
is winning kudos nationwide for equally distributing, bringing up schools that are from poor communities and evening the playing field.
Reverend Hatch, hold on with me. I'm going to telephone calls. I've got some of the most intelligent callers in Chicagoland. I'm going to Calvin. Calvin, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Yeah, Gerard, thanks very much. Tell Reverend Meeks, I used to live down the street from him. We went there. In fact, I went to school with his sister. If it snowed, we went to school, Gerard, bottom line. And also, another thing I want to mention, all these millions of dollars from the lottery years ago, they've been talking about this was going into the school fund. Guess what? What's going on with that?
Yeah.
Now, you got a bunch of grown men down in Springfield fighting over human beings. And another thing I want to say, too, is this. We are losing out in the education field. You got China, you got all these people coming across the water, coming to go to school here, and you got kids here that can go here and honestly go to school, and they got tutoring sessions, they got all kinds of stuff to work with here. And, you know, some kids don't want to do that, but the bottom line, I'm going to speak to the ones that want to go to school. If you want to go to school, go to school, because I tell you what, it's rough standing out on a corner talking about going to New Trier High School where you can have an education right here in Chicago.
Wow.
There's some good teachers there.
Hey, Calvin, thank you for the phone call. Reverend Hatch, he's got a good point. I mean, are we complaining too much here? And should we put the onus back on these legislators? There was casino funding, there's lottery funding. Where did the money go? Was there a magician that pulled a rabbit out of the hat and kept the money? I mean, what's going on here?
Well, that is the point, that the politicians need to be held accountable.
And you know what? Senator Reverend Meeks is a politician.
Who's put 3 proposals on the table that have not been acted upon by the Illinois legislature. And so the clergy, because many of us, we're not Johnny-come-latelys to this issue. I mean, this is something we've been working on for year in and year out. In the spring of '07, we thought we had made some movement, but because we thought the governor had promised to help fix the problem here in Illinois and take us out of the basement of education funding.
Do you think that the governor is playing hide and seek with you, with Save Our Schools Now and from Reverend Meeks?
I think all of them, all of the legislative leaders in the General Assembly, the Speaker, the President, and the Governor need to be held accountable. I mean, it just simply makes no sense that Illinois, we have the widest disparity in the country between wealthy and poor districts. I mean, we're at the education basement. I call it the shame of Illinois.
Yeah, it's 49th. Illinois is 49th in funding. It's ridiculous.
We're 49th in the state's contribution to school funding, because the state contribution actually is what provides the equalizing force in education. That's the way it's done all across the country. We're not talking about rocket science here. We're talking about the will to do the right thing.
I appreciate that, Reverend Hatch. Hold tight. Is funding the only issue? Maybe it's behavior, expectations, and goal setting. 630-575-TALK is my number. Call me. More Garrard McClendon Live. We'll be back in a moment.
You don't hear pastors say, don't come to my church on Sunday. You don't hear any of them saying, don't come to my church on Sunday. They want you to come to church on Sunday. But then they're telling you not to send their children to school. The first day of school. Now, that is pretty harsh. Come to church, but don't send your child to school. That's pretty harsh, I think. Yeah, it's very harsh.
Oh, Mayor Daley has lowered the boom. Go to church, but don't go to school. And when you come to church, expect 2 collections. Maybe CPS should take up a collection for $17,000 per child per year. You're watching Garrard McClendon Live. We're going to be going back to the phone shortly. I do want to look at another blog comment from Kim. Kim says, I have supported Reverend Meeks on many things. I support his vision on this problem today. However, I don't think keeping the kids out of school was the best choice to make. I'm going to Dolores. You're on Garrard McClendon Live. Welcome to GML.
Hello.
Hi.
I think that they threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Uh-oh, you got to explain that one.
They should not put this burden on children. It's the adults that have to fight for better schools, better teachers. The children should be in school. I hope New Trier takes some of these kids, and then these so-called ministers have to pay for the transportation for these kids to get to and from these schools.
Dolores, thank you so much for your call. Reverend Hatch, she's got a good point. I mean, it's one thing to bus children to Northfield and Winnetka for 2 or 3 days. It's another thing to bus those children out there for a 180-day school year. What's your answer to that, Reverend?
Well, I think number one, all of us want the same thing. I mean, we know that it is right to have equitable funding in Illinois. The point is that had we not had the threat of a boycott, and had we not carried out what we're carrying out this week so far, we would not be having this conversation.
So
we wouldn't be on your show. So it's already borne fruit. That's the point.
You're absolutely right. I'm asking, though, is this protest symbolic or is it realistic?
Well, it is realistic in that we have now more momentum in this state to build on, to really address this problem that we've had for almost 35 years.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So we've already borne really tremendous fruit.
Reverend
More
Hatch.
people understand unequitable funding in education than did this time last month.
BJ, you're on Garrard McClendon Live. Make it quick, BJ. What's your comment?
Kids should go to school. Parents, let them fight for them. My nephew goes to a charter school. The end.
Wow. Thank you, BJ. BJ made it plain. She made it quick. Let's see if I can get one more call in. Jesse. Jesse, are you there? Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Hi, Gerard. I went to New Trier today with the boycott.
Excellent.
It was an excellent thing, and I just want to make one comment. The pot is calling the kettle black. Rufus Williams and Mayor Daley, they failed to realize that they took the kids out of school back in May, June to Soldier Field for the same purpose. So why was it good for them and not for us to fight for the same thing?
Wow, excellent phone call. Reverend Hatch, talk to me. I've got to go to break soon, but make it real quick. Talk to me.
The caller's exactly right. There were scores of children in Soldier Field rallying for education funding, and I personally have been down to Springfield with school bus loads of children from Chicago public schools to lobby for funding in Springfield. I mean, so obviously it's a great civic lessons for kids to stand up for themselves and then stand up for the young people that will come up behind them.
Yes, sir.
They'll always remember today, believe me.
That's right. It's a lesson in civics. Are you sending your child to school tomorrow? Welcome back to Garrard McClendon Live. Empower yourself by going to the website, www.cltv.com/GML. Freedom of speech is alive and well. If phone lines are jammed, you can still reach me at GML Community through the power of a keystroke. Welcome back, Reverend Hatch. Reverend Hatch, I need a final word for today, my brother.
Well, everybody listening, we need you to go to www.saveourschools.now.com. The protest continues.
Yes.
The fruit that has already been born. More people know about this issue than ever before.
Appreciate it.
And we're really going to move fast forward like a locomotive.
Send your child to school tomorrow, but complain about everything you see that isn't sufficient. Poor lighting, broken windows, a lack of laboratories in the school, teachers using broken English while teaching. No one deserves that type of disrespect. Thanks to my guests, Reverend Marshall Hatch and Reverend Meeks. Gerard says, go to school tomorrow, go to school, keep your head up, be encouraged.
Ask or ask, Donda's rules, Sue choose.